Of tax cuts, pocketbooks, and Romney land hijinks. It's Thursday, October 18th, and this is Now. Joining me today, Emmy Darling, MSNBC political analyst and national affairs editor for New York Magazine, John Heilman. Rolling Stone executive editor, Eric Bates. MSNBC contributor and queen bee of thegrio.com, Joy Reid, and MSNBC political analyst and executive editor of MSNBC.com, Richard Wolff. Mitt Romney has been coming under heavy fire for the lack of specifics in his tax plan. Why? Because we've never seen anything like it.
My plan is not like anything that's been tried before.
Indeed. We haven't seen anything like it because we really haven't seen it at all. With the election only 19 days away, the Romney-Ryan ticket is still struggling to explain the details of their plan. It has been quite a process.
The math simply doesn't add up, does it?
Well, actually, it does.
But, Governor, where are the specifics of how you get to this math? Isn't that an issue?
Well, the specifics are these, which is those principles I described are the heart of my policy.
If you cut those tax rates for everybody 20%, it costs $5 trillion over 10 years. True?
Not in the least bit true.
Well, how much would it cost?
It's revenue neutral.
You haven't given me the math.
No, but I don't have the it would take me too long to go through all of the math.
If somehow the numbers don't add up, would you be willing to look again at a 20%?
Well, of course they add up. I was someone who ran businesses for 25 years.
You don't go to Congress and say, here's all of our details, take it or leave it. You say, this is my framework.
Where's the leadership in this? You're a numbers guy.
No, we're saying that. Right. And here's what I know, Matt. If you say to Congress, take it or leave it, here's my plan, my way or the highway, you don't get things done.
If the campaign has been reluctant to do the math, it's probably because the numbers themselves just keep changing.
You could say everybody's going to get up to a $17,000 deduction. Make up a number, $25,000, $50,000. Everybody gets, I'll pick a number, $25,000.
The latest headache for Romney is that the Nonpartisan Tax Policy Center has done the math on each of Romney's scenarios, capping deductions at $17,000, $25,000, and $50,000. And they say it still doesn't add up. Here's the arithmetic. A $50,000 cap would result in $760 billion of revenue, while a $25,000 cap would net $1.3 trillion. How about a $17,000 limit? That would raise $1.7 trillion. But here is the key takeaway. Eliminating all deductions, goodbye home mortgage deduction, goodbye charitable tax giving credit, would only result in $2 trillion worth of revenue, leaving Mitt Romney and his tax plan $3 trillion in the hole. But what would the Tax Policy Center know? They're just a bunch of economists.
There's no economist can say Mitt Romney's tax plan adds $5 trillion if I say I will not add to the deficit with my tax plan.
Should we be surprised at the fuzzy math? Perhaps not. After all, Governor Romney began his race for the White House in 2011 by saying he wouldn't touch income tax rates at all. According to his website at the time, quote, Mitt Romney believes in holding the line against increases in marginal tax rates. No mention of cutting them at all. But a few months later, in the heat of the primaries, he started to waver.
I'd like to get it down to 25%. But ultimately, let's get it down as low as we possibly can. If it's 20, if it's 25, but paying more than 25%, I think is taking too much out of our pockets.
And by late February, Romney had completed his 180-degree turn.
I'm going to make an across-the-board 20% reduction in marginal individual income tax rates. 20% down across the board.
Which leads us to his present difficulties. John Heilman, the math question seems to continue to bedevil, to flummox Romney land. I guess the larger question is, as far as this being a campaign issue, is the American public concerned about tax rates or is it concerned about deficits? Does this play on the campaign trail?
Well, I think that they may be concerned about something completely different than that, which is jobs. And obviously tax rates and deficits have effect on the jobs picture. But the president has had the winning hand on taxes for a long time. And it's a weird thing, right? Because traditionally Republicans promising to cut taxes is a winning argument compared to Democrats being accused of raising taxes. The president has forthrightly said, I want to raise taxes, and has gone right into the teeth of that, now raising taxes on the wealthy. But it polls at 75 or 80% what the president wants to do on taxes. Romney's plan is obviously vague and patently ridiculous. So we can talk later about the concept of dynamic scoring, which is the magic pixie dust that can make all of the internal mathematical contradictions fly away. But in the end, I think for a lot of voters, the truth is that neither the tax issue specifically, nor the deficit issue specifically is really what they're focused on. What they're really focused on more is who do they think has a credible plan to make America grow faster and make wages rise and put people back to work. And those other pieces are maybe part of that puzzle, but that's really what they want to hear, and it's the issue that seems to matter most to voters, especially these swing state voters who haven't made up their mind yet.
But Richard, assuming if we're talking about credible plan, the back and forth on the numbers question, the really awkward answers that you get from both Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney on the specifics, the fact that you have nonpartisan, economists coming out and saying the math doesn't work, you have a $3 trillion hole here. How much does that undermine Romney's case as Mr. Fix-It?
Well, it undermines every piece of his credibility. But let's just remember why he came up with this tax promise. At the time, when he said he was going to cut across-the-board tax rates, he was losing to a guy with a plan called 999. He has his 5-point plan.
Oh, my God.
5-point plan, which he'll say, I have a 5-point plan. But the other guy was beating him at the time with 999, flat tax. So he was an outlier who seemed reasonable, who seemed to be in the realm of mathematical reality. At this point, he should have already done his flip-flop, said, I'm going to be serious now about the deficit, and he's just trying to do it too late. So you're in a situation where he's plainly contradicting himself. If you listen to the last debate, he said that overall tax rates, the overall contribution of wealthy people to tax rates would stay the same, but their numbers would come down. That contradicts Paul Ryan saying revenue neutral. Revenue neutral means the same amount of money. So they're all over the place, and it's a problem of his own making.
We have to pause on our Mitt Romney discussion for just a quick moment. President Obama is in the swing state of New Hampshire. He's speaking now at a rally in Manchester's Veterans Park. Let's take a listen.
Money offshore. They can buy companies loaded up with debt, lay off workers, strip their pensions, send their jobs overseas. They can still make money doing it, turning a big profit. It's the same philosophy that's been squeezing middle-class families for more than a decade. It's the same philosophy that got us into this mess. For the last 4 years, I've watched the American people, with their resilience and resolve, overcoming the pain and struggle of dealing with the consequences of the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. We've worked too hard to let this country go down that path again. New Hampshire, we cannot grow this economy from the top down. This economy grows from the middle out. When everybody has ladders of opportunity, if they work hard, they can succeed. They can get ahead. That's how we move ahead. And when workers have a decent living, have a little money in their pockets, that means they're out there as customers buying goods, and that means businesses do better. And that means businesses make more profits, then they hire more workers. That's how you grow an economy. That's why we can't go backward. That's why we've got to move forward. That's why I'm running for a second term as President of the United States. You know, on Tuesday, Governor Romney took another stab at trying to sell us this $5 trillion tax cut that favors the wealthy. He took another swing at it, and he whiffed. Instead of telling us how he'd pay for it, he said, I'll let you know after the election. And then when I asked him about it, he said, I'm a businessman. I know the numbers will work. Take my word for it. Now, Here, I'm going to let you in on a little tip. When a politician tells you he's going to wait until after the election, it's not because their plan is so good that they don't want to spoil the secret. That's usually not what's going on.
That was President Obama at a rally in Manchester, New Hampshire. Next stop, New York City, for a taping of The Daily Show. Eric Bates, the president seizing on the same mathematical problems that we were just discussing. He did not use the word sketchy, but he did say, basically, Mitt Romney's trying to sell you some faulty products.
Well, he also touched on what is the underlying debate beneath the numbers, which is how do you grow an economy? Do you grow it by giving tax cuts to the wealthy, as Romney argues? Then they, in their wisdom, will create jobs because they'll be enriched and have all this extra money laying around that they don't have any place to put in the Cayman Islands. Or do you, as President Obama said, give it to the customers, basically, and let them grow the economy by shopping and buying things, which then, creates more demand. So those are two very different models that are contesting here.
But, the president also reminds the American public, and I don't know to what degree this message is penetrating, that Mitt Romney basically wants to continue the fiscal policies of George W. Bush. And the president said just now, you don't want to put the country on a path that we were once on 4 years ago. I'm paraphrasing terribly because I'm not running for president. But at any rate, in the debate on Wednesday, Tuesday, I don't even know what day it is anymore, Tuesday, Mitt Romney was asked about the differences between him and George W. Bush, and I thought the answer was incredibly telling. He started talking about oil and Venezuela, and it was like, the substantive difference that you want your Republican candidate to have is that he will not set the country in the same path that the last Republican president set the country on.
Right, and I think that is the fundamental truth of the campaign that's been obscured, I think, by Romney doing what is, there's a classic sort of business presentation style, right, where when you're asked a question in a business presentation, you respond with a number. Well, Alex, I have 3 things to say about that, and here they are. And then you present 3 sort of macro things. It makes you sound serious. And Romney has been counting on that business presentation style that, ironically, Herman Cain also used. I give you a number, 999. Now, that makes me sound like I'm giving you specifics, even when I'm not. He's counting on that to obscure the really basic fact, which is that he really just wants to do everything George W. Bush did. That has been the Republican economic philosophy for 30 years. They're not going to change it just because they have a different guy as their standard bearer. Cutting taxes for the wealthy is their basic economic principle for everything. It's a fix-all for whether the economy is good or whether the economy is bad, cutting taxes for the rich. But he has to find a way to present that to the public as if it's something new. So what Barack Obama's job is to break down the Romney sort of numbers bedazzlement into regular people terms.
I don't even know that it's that dazzling anymore, though, isn't it? I mean, I thought there was a certain transparency to the 5-point plan when Romney kept going back to that as a meme in the debate. John.
Well, yeah, there is. But there's another fundamental reality in this race, which is for people who are fans of the president, that's unfortunate. This is what I was trying to kind of allude to at the beginning. President Obama's losing on the economy to Mitt Romney. And people are believing that Mitt Romney is better at fixing the broader economy. That's what the polling shows, except for with some rare outliers, is the case. So the tax issue, which the president wins on, he's not been able to take that and make that people believe that Romney's still not better than he is on the economy. And a big part of the problem with that is that President Obama is not putting on a broader scale. His argument is, effectively at the debate the other night, I want a second term because I want to keep doing what I've been doing for the last 4 years. And this is a wrong track country. The right track, wrong track number is getting better, but it's still 55% of the country thinks we're on the wrong track. The status quo is not acceptable to voters right now. And so to argue, I totally agree with the substantive argument and the political power of the argument that's saying he's just an extension of George W. Bush. But it's undercut to some extent by, and this is why President Obama has so often basically said, he's gone back rather than saying that he has a great new plan for the future. He goes back and says, I want to extend what President Clinton did. He's kind of made some headway on that.
The alternative, ironically, is so bad that you can't take it, which was once the Romney argument.
But at this moment, it doesn't actually look like, the president's failure on this point has been to make Romney's patent lack of credibility on the tax issue undermine his lead on the economic issue and make that broader case. He's not made it. And as I say, he's lost on this issue.
The president has not been able to conflate the two, even though they are inherently linked. We will actually talk more about the president's vision and his plans for the country later on in the hour. But after the break, while Governor Romney continues to deal with fallout from Bindergate, yes, I just said that, wife Ann Romney and son Josh visit The View to discuss the women's vote and the reported shakeup within Camp Romney that gave son Tag a more prominent role.
What is it like for you to hear the President of the United States call your dad a liar? How do you react to that?
Jump out of your seat and you want to rush down the debate stage and take a swing at him.
We'll have more on the Romney family, Anne's turn on The View, and why her husband canceled on such a, quote, high-risk and sharp-tongued show, like this show, next on Now.